Welcome to the Brand and Market Podcast, where branding clarity meets marketing strategy. I'm your host, Allie Haney, founder of Brand and Market, a boutique agency dedicated to helping small businesses craft intentional brands and effective marketing plans. Each week, I share practical tips and insights to help you, especially those of you in real estate-related industries, build a standout brand to attract your brand's biggest fans. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. I'm your host, Allie Haney, and we are in part 3 of what I thought was only going to be a 3-part series. Turns out is probably going to be 4 parts because we have had a lot happen since the closing of Elysian. This series is all about the acquisition of this short-term rental that we just closed on in November. Part 1 was all about the pre-offer phase. That was episode 69. So if you haven't heard that yet, you should go back and check it out. It's all of the decision-making processes that we went through before we even decided to put in an offer on the place to start with. Part 2 is episode 71, and that was the under contract phase, all of the inspections that we did, all of the decision-making processes that we went through. And now brings us to part 3, post-closing. So that's why I thought that this was going to be the last part. But after spending a week at the property over Thanksgiving, I think we're going to have to split this part into 2 parts. So where part 2 left off was when we were just about to close, and we ended up closing on, I guess, technically the 10th of November. And I'll tell you why. The closing date was supposed to be the 6th. It ended up not happening, ended up not recording that day. And I'll tell you why. So once we got to closing date or closing week, we had, of course, to wire the down payment, and we were all ready to do that. We were actually, however, in Kentucky. So for those of you who don't know, we live right outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. We have a short-term rental called the Commonwealth on the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky. And then we were closing on a short-term rental in Virginia that we are now calling Luna or Elysian. The week that we were supposed to close, before we got the closing date, we had already scheduled to go down to Kentucky to the Commonwealth to make some updates on that property since we had a little bit of a slower early November. We were installing a hot tub. We were putting together new furniture, just doing some of those like random annual update things that just you can go down in one trip and get them done all in one fell swoop. So we had requested a virtual closing. Well, I didn't realize that there was a difference between a virtual closing and a remote closing. A virtual closing is when you sign all of the papers electronically and you don't have to have a notary there. A remote closing is you actually have to have the physical papers there to close, and you have to sign them all in front of a notary. So I thought that this was going to be a virtual close, ended up having to be a remote close, which means that the title company had to send all of our closing documents via overnight mail. And typically, again, that would not be an issue. But like I mentioned, we were at our Kentucky property, and that Kentucky property is right outside of Louisville. Well, if you put the timelines together, there was a horrendous UPS plane crash in Louisville the day that we were supposed to get the overnight papers. And so UPS, all of its deliveries, which is what they had overnighted the papers with us to, all of the deliveries were delayed. So we never ended up we did get the overnight papers, but we got them on Friday after we were already supposed to have closed. So in lieu of that, we were, of course, at our Airbnb there, and we do not have a printer there. And we had to figure out a way to print close to 200 pages. I think it was 170 pages, something like that. With no printer. So I quickly looked up the local library. That was my first instinct. Our property is really rural. So like in order to get to like a Staples or a Office Depot, that would have been like nearly an hour drive. So I looked up the local library. Thankfully, they were able to allow us to print all of those pages. We did have to pay for it. And apparently the library printer in Spencer County maxes you out after 50 pages. So we had to go and override it with the librarian. But hey, the silver lining is that they have a notary on staff. So we could not only print there, but we could also sign the papers there. All done printing our 100 plus pages of closing docs. Unfortunately, we didn't have the pretty little stickers that the closing attorney had put on the overnighted documents. So we had to go through each individual page to figure out where we were going to sign and hope and pray that we didn't miss a spot. And then we go up to the front desk to talk to the librarian again, say, hey, we've got all these papers printed. We're ready to sign in front of the notary. And they're like, actually, we have 2 notaries on staff, but both of them are out today. So at this point, it's like 3:30 in the day, and we're in a small town in rural Kentucky. A lot of stuff closes at 4, some stuff closes at 5. Just like a little bit desperate at this point. Like, okay, do you have any idea where there would be another notary? So they sent us to the county extension office, and thankfully the county extension office they did have a notary, and she was very, very patient with us as we went through all of those pages trying to figure out where in the world we were supposed to sign. And then we get to the first page that she's supposed to notarize, and it says notary in the state of Virginia. And we were like, oh crap. So we call the title company, call the real estate attorney's office, and they're like, it's fine. Just cross out Virginia and write Kentucky. It's not that big of a deal. And I was like, okay. But of course, after being supposed to get, the overnight papers, not being able to get those, having to find a printer, the notary that we were expecting to use wasn't there. It was like thing after thing after thing on that day. This task that I had budgeted, an hour for is now taking 3 or 4 hours, and we're butting up on the time that the post office is going to close because we're supposed to overnight the papers back, but we don't even know if they're going to get there because we can't use UPS, so we have to go USPS. So we get all the papers signed in front of the notary, go to the post office. They're like, we cannot guarantee that these are going to be overnighted. So this is a Thursday that we're signing on. Overnight would have gotten them back to Virginia Friday. And then if they didn't get there on Friday, they would get there on Saturday. So normally, not that big of a deal. But we were trying to record by the end of the week so that we could stop at the house on the way back from Kentucky and change the lock on it. We wanted to put the Schlagen code lock on it for future guests. So anyway, send them overnight, and they don't end up getting there till Saturday. So technically, the closing was not recorded until Monday, but the house is officially ours. It was just a little bit of a stressful 48 hours, I guess. I think after Friday, when I realized that at close of business, it wasn't going to get there on time, it was just kind of out of my hands and I let it go a little bit. But it was definitely a stressful little time. Fast forward to Friday. Friday was supposed to be our last day in Kentucky before we were headed back to Virginia, I think. And we I don't even remember how the conversation started, but basically we were notified that the previous owners did not cancel the reservations for that weekend or future reservations for the remainder of the year. It was within the contract that they were supposed to do that because we knew that we were going to be changing everything: wall color, flooring, most likely, new furniture, all the things. And so we get this call like, hey, there are guests that are supposed to check in today. Do you want to keep that reservation? And I remember looking at Caleb and just being like, what the fuck? Are you serious? At this point, it's like a 2-night reservation, a Friday and a Saturday. Let me back up. At first, we were told that there were already guests on the property and that we needed to ask them to leave if we wanted them to leave. Come to find out, they had not yet checked in. They were supposed to check in that day, which was a Friday, for a weekend stay. And they were like, do you want to keep the reservation under our name and we'll just write you a check for the reservation amount? And I was like, absolutely not. There's so much liability there. I didn't personally get to vet the guests. That has nothing to do with me under my name. This home is now under our names and our homeowner's insurance and all of like so many things were like flashing in my mind, like danger, danger, danger. So they offered to cancel the reservation for us and then give us the contact information for the future reservations for the rest of 2025. At first, I was going to take the contact information for the remainder of the guests in 2025, but then I realized like we're not going to be able to honor those reservations at all this year. And the property is going to look completely different from what it looked like when they booked it, albeit it will look better. But at the same time, it's very likely that it's just going to be a different type of guest that's going to book the property of what it looks like now and what it will look like in 6 weeks. So I ended up not taking the contact information of the future guests. The previous owners did cancel that stay. But again, it was a very stressful 48 hours there for a second. On the way back from Kentucky, we were able to stop and change that lock, which was really convenient. We dropped off a couple things at the house that I had left over from some of the like interior design of the Kentucky house that matched the color palette for Luna. So that was really convenient. It made me feel like, a real bona fide short-term rental owner where I'm taking items from one and putting them in another. And it was just a whole like happy dance moment for me. Now let's fast forward. There was like a couple of weeks where we didn't go to the property. We were waiting for Thanksgiving because we knew that we were going to be able to spend the full week there. Our daughter had off school the whole week. Caleb was going to take off part of the week as well. And that way we could just start going all in on the interior design because we had received that from our interior designer, Brianna Michelle. And I think we received that like November 10th or 15th. So it was shortly after we closed. And it was really exciting to see. So the process behind that interior design was we had gotten the initial designs back. I was able to give her some feedback on some of the designs. She pretty much knocked it out of the park the first time around after I had laid out the brand that I wanted to create for this property. And so there was just some very like minor tweaks. She also sent me a full spreadsheet divided by room with all of the links of each individual piece of furniture and decor that we needed to purchase. That spreadsheet was so helpful, and I'm still using it now as things come in. I mark, she had like the anticipated price in one of the columns, but we were able to get some further discounts using Wayfair Professional and also using her connection with a site called Minoan, and I can jump into that a little bit more in a second. Some of the purchase prices were actually less than the projected price on the spreadsheet. So I was like, okay, I want to keep track of exactly how much we spend. So I, added another column with the actual amount spent, where we ordered it from, when we ordered it, and where we got it delivered to. As stuff is coming in, I started another column that was like, okay, we've received it, to check it off to make sure that nothing gets lost in the mail. Like I said, the design was on point. I started to order things mostly through Minoan. Minoan is, I'm probably going to butcher this explanation, but I'm going to try to do it as best as possible. So bigger hotels, they get discounts for ordering in bulk. So let's say it's a 200-room hotel. Each hotel has 2 nightstands and therefore 2 lamps. So that hotel is going to need 400 lamps for those 200 rooms. Buying in bulk from like, let's say a Crate and Barrel or West Elm to get all of those lamps, they will honor a bulk discount. However, as a short-term rental owner and you're only ordering, let's say 6 lamps for your 3-bedroom house, you don't get that discount. Well, Minoan takes all of the short-term rental owners and groups them into one bulk group. So that way the bulk discounts can also be applied to those who are in the hospitality realm that are not an actual hotel. I hope that makes sense. So Brianna has an even further discount through Minoan. So we were ordering a lot of things through Minoan. However, I was able to get some stuff cheaper on my own for the places that Minoan didn't offer discounts from. You can order everything through them, but you can also like split up the order. Let's say for one room, we had items coming from Article, Wayfair, Society6, Amazon, and Target. Well, Amazon specifically, Minoan doesn't offer any additional discounts. So just so happened to be ordering during like the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals. And so anything that I wasn't getting a discount on through Minoan, I was clicking on the link to see if I could get a discount directly through the company. I think it was like Amazon and some Wayfair stuff that I was able to get cheaper on my own than I was through Minoan, but the vast majority of the ordering was done through Minoan. That has gone pretty well, I would say. However, the Minoan quotes, whenever you have a cart through Minoan, you have to ask for a quote to get like the Minoan price, essentially. It's 1,400 square feet. So it's 2 bed, 1 bath, a living room, dining room, loft, and then there were some exterior areas that I wanted her help and design expertise on as well, including a like stargazing dome or recreational area, and then a reading nook, which is like this little like shed with books, and then a like pavilion area with a grill and outdoor seating. Oh, and a fire pit area. So I had like a lot of exterior areas that we wanted her attention on as well. So each of those individual areas was actually split up into different quotes. So I ended up getting in total 17 Minoan quotes. And that was a real challenge to like go through each of those quotes, look at each item individually to see whether I was getting the best deal either through Minoan or through the individual company. It has made my life very difficult trying to track all of the different shipments from different providers. Because, for example, I'm getting some stuff through Minoan from Wayfair, but I'm also getting things directly from Wayfair that were not ordered through Minoan. So it's a lot of emails. It's a lot of tracking because we ordered thousands, tens of thousands of dollars worth of furniture and decor. That's been a little bit of a challenge. It was a little bit hard to navigate when I was very overwhelmed when I started getting the quotes from Minoan because my inbox, I checked it and it was like I had 20 emails and each of them had anywhere from one item on one quote to like 15 to 20 items on another quote. And so going through and sorting through that was a little bit overwhelming. And I don't have a clear answer on how to expedite that process the next time, but it will be a goal of mine to try and expedite that process the next time. Now, I mentioned how much we spent on the furniture and decor. I want to touch on that a little bit because when we got the spreadsheet back from Brianna, from the interior designer, I was a little bit surprised that the furniture and like the budget that we gave her was specifically for furniture and decor. It did not include the flooring that we were going to need to put into the property. It did not include the cost of the paint. I knew it was not going to include the cost of labor because that it was virtual design and labor obviously varies from city to city, state to state. We ended up spending about $1,000 in paint for the whole house and some exterior paint. And then the flooring also was not included in that budget. So she came in right in the middle of our budget window for furniture and decor, but I was not expecting to have flooring and painting outside of that budget. So something moving forward that I will know next time is that I need to have a separate furniture and decor budget that needs to be lesser than the total budget. That is the number that I will present to the designer next time so that there's not like a discrepancy of what's going to be close to $9,000 that we have to like come up with before we open. So because we were planning on replacing LVP throughout the entire downstairs and the loft, and then wanted to put some tile into the bathroom. With that being said, I also thought that we were going to be able to delay the flooring installation until we had some income coming from the property. But once we got in there the week of Thanksgiving, I was just like, it's in worse shape than I thought. We spent one night there before we put the offer in on the house. But I mean, we were there from 4 p.m. till 10 a.m., barely even 18 hours. So now that we were there for a week, we discovered some other issues that we thought, okay, we need to bite the bullet and fix these. Like, for example, we pulled the refrigerator out to paint the wall behind the refrigerator. And there was like a small hole in the floor where they had not fixed it the last time they laid flooring. That small hole in the floor was not reflected on the inspection report that we got back. And so it was like really frustrating to feel like we had been the inspection was not as thorough as we wanted it to be. I'll put it that way. We knew that there were going to be some issues that we needed to fix before we got guests in there. And so we were like, okay, we're just going to bite the bullet then. And we're going to figure out the budget to make sure that we can do these floors before guests start coming in. So that was something that was a little unexpected, but I guess that's just part of the game. Another thing that I would have done differently or that I'm more educated on this time is the amount of paint that it takes to paint a space. For the most part, I think there's only one color that we might be a little bit short on. We still have a couple of places of trim to do throughout the house, but for the most part, I was pretty spot on. I never had too little, but I did have too much of some. Like there's one color of pure white in eggshell specifically that I have like 2 extra gallons for. I don't know why. There were 2 rooms that were supposed to be pure white, the kitchen and the master bedroom. Well, the master bedroom was already like a light cream color, so it only took us 1 coat in there. And then for some reason, I just thought there was more surface area in the kitchen, but there's an entire wall full of cabinets. And so I think I, in my head, had pure white enough to cover the wall with the cabinets as well. We ended up with a lot extra, and paint's not something that you can return. So that was a lesson learned there that I probably spent around $100 to $150 unnecessarily. Interrupting this episode to offer some additional value. If you're thinking about buying a short-term rental, whether it's your first one ever or the first time you're actually treating it like a real investment, I made something just for you. It's the short-term rental acquisition checklist. I made it in real time as we walked through the acquisition process of a new short-term rental that we purchased for ourselves. It's the exact framework I use when analyzing properties to add to our own portfolio. Think of it as your step-by-step guide to staying organized, running the numbers, navigating due diligence, and making confident decisions instead of second-guessing yourself all the way through the process. It's all through the lens of someone who knows the importance of branding and marketing. If you're ready to evaluate properties like an investor and set yourself up for success from day one, head to the show notes and download it for free. Let's turn your future listing into your legacy. Okay, back to the show. Another thing about the interior design that I wanted to mention was that Brianna warned me that things go out of stock quickly, but I did not realize how quickly. So she sent us the designs, let's say, I think it was on a Friday, and she was like, I encourage you to get these ordered within a week. And I was like, okay, sounds good. Started to do the Minoan quotes, all of that good stuff. There was already items out of stock. Like there was an entire bed from Pottery Barn that I tried to order less than 4 or 5 days after she had sent me the original list, and it was just gone. I brought that to her attention, and she was very helpful in finding like a replacement for that. And then the other thing was that one of the colors that we had picked, or she had picked for the living room area, it was this absolutely beautiful cranberry color, but it was archived back in 2017 through Sherwin-Williams. And when I went to go get the paint at Lowe's, they didn't have that color because it had technically been archived. So I messaged her and was like, told her the situation. She found another replacement color really quickly. But between the time I messaged her and the time she responded, I was able to find a local Sherwin-Williams store. It was legit like a quarter mile from the Lowe's, but I had just never been farther back down that back road past the Lowe's and had no idea. So I went down the road to the actual Sherwin-Williams store, and they were able to pull the codes or whatever for the color that she had sent me that was actually already archived. And they were able to get me the exact color that she had recommended, which I'm so stoked about because that color is absolutely beautiful. Okay, so I feel like now we've gotten everything pre-ordering, ordering, and now we're to the point where we're at the house for Thanksgiving week. We found the holes in the floor. We're doing a lot of repairs. Thankfully, my dad is very handy and my husband is incredibly handy too. So shout out to them for being the MVPs of the week. It was my idea to have the bunk beds in the kids' room. And I will do my best to actually put up a blog post and show you what that like rendering looked like. I kid you not, we brought that bad boy to life and it looks so, so good. So I showed my dad the rendering that Brianna gave me. I then pulled some Pinterest inspiration to say, hey, this is kind of like a little bit more in detail of what I had in my head. And without a single plan or blueprint or anything, this man whips up a materials list, tells me what to go buy from Lowe's. Caleb goes and buys the lumber. And he comes back and he's like, I don't understand how he created this out of like thin air. Like it is like contractor grade durability, stability. It's so good. It's like the kids are going to absolutely love it. He'd made a built-in ladder. It's double bed bunk beds. Like it's a bigger size bunk bed. This entire room is 72 square feet and we can sleep 4 people in there and still have room for a table and reading nook for the kids because it's going to be the kids' room. He whipped it up out of thin air. I'm just absolutely in awe. As we started to like continue to work through things, I was there for Thanksgiving dinner with all 3 kids and I was making every single meal and we didn't have a dishwasher. Really, if you're like staying there for like 1 or 2 days, no dishwasher is not that big of a deal. But then I was like, let me put myself in the shoes of somebody booking this. Most likely it's going to be the mom, the woman, the wife, i.e. me. And the wife is most likely going to be the one that's doing the cooking and probably the cleaning up. And I don't want her vacation that she booked to be plagued with her having to wash dishes after every single meal. So there was a space that I guess at one point did have a dishwasher, and someone along the line took the dishwasher out and put a wine cooler there. The wine cooler looked really, really cool, but functionally, I swear it had never been used. So we pulled that bad boy out, and I said, Caleb, can you go find me a dishwasher on a Black Friday sale? Go look at the scratch and dent at the Lowe's and bring me back a dishwasher, please. Because if I have to wash one more dish, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. He went and he got a dishwasher. He became a plumber overnight and hooked that bad boy up. We accidentally ended up having a leak because he said that I didn't tell him he was supposed to be doing plumbing, so he didn't bring his plumbing stuff from the house. Flooded under the sink, got that cleaned up. He got his plumbing tools and fixed me right up. And for the rest of the week, I had a dishwasher. So I'm a happy woman, and he is a jack of all trades. The other thing that I knew what we wanted to do was replace the vent fan in the bathroom, like above the shower. And so then he became an electrician. We ended up running into a couple of issues there. Overall, we worked together as a team really well. Me, my dad, Caleb, the kids were pretty good. They ran around outside quite a bit, which was so fun to see. It's like my vision coming to life. We were there 7 nights, I believe, and we made s'mores at least 3 of those nights. And the only reason that we didn't do it the other nights was because it was like 25 degrees and below. And even with the fire, it was still just icy cold. And let's see, what else did we do? We painted the master bedroom, got that done. We painted the color drenched kids' room. The kids' room is a 2-tone. That's the one with the bunk beds, 2-tone purple room. So it was the first time I'd ever painted a ceiling and genuinely color drenched everything from the ceiling to the trim to the walls to the baseboards. Like everything was purple. And then the bunk beds themselves were dark purple. And that was a lot of fun. And we also painted the kitchen. There was a mural that was there that read The Toasted Marshmallow, which was the name of the house previously. We are now calling her Luna, so we had to get rid of that Toasted Marshmallow mural. And that was like a really impactful moment for me too, painting over the toasted marshmallow, just seeing it kind of disappear away so that we could make it our own place that's out of this world, out of our world. We go out of that world and go to the moon when we go to that property. It's so peaceful. And then it came to the living room, and that's the room with the cranberry color that I love dearly, but hated while we were doing it. That room, for whatever reason, it was like 2-toned. It had chair rail. So it was like light cream on top and gray on bottom. Both pretty easy colors to cover, you would think. And then we were going from those colors to cranberry. It took me 5 coats. 5 coats on those walls. And I wasn't doing some like bullshit thin coat of a roller. Like I was coating it on those walls. It took 5 coats. And that room about broke me because I knew how beautiful it was going to be. But I was like, this is taking way too long. For the time it took to do that room alone, we probably could have done 2 to 3 rooms. And so I was getting frustrated. My dad like stepped in and started to like cut the trim and everything so that I could keep rolling in another room. We got the dining room. I'm calling it the dining room. It's kind of like a living room as well, but that's where the dining room table is going to be. There's a beautiful fireplace. And Brianna Michelle had suggested doing some wallpaper in some of the rooms. And one of those parts of that she wanted wallpaper on is an actual dome ceiling. It's curved. And I was like, I'm not really sure how the wallpaper is going to match up in here. Like, because, you have to like layer it so that the edge of one matches up with the edge of the other. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to take a gamble and spend a lot on rolls of wallpaper that we can't use. That's very unique because it was literally like cloud print. And so I was like, let me just like throw out a post on Facebook to the local Facebook group and see if there's any mural artists around here. So I kind of did that like quickly in passing. Hey, we have an Airbnb. We have a mural that we want to paint it on a wall. Do we have any local muralists? I would love to support a local artist. And this one woman's name got referred like 4 times. And I was like, okay, Jeanette, let's chat. Messaged her on Facebook, and she came and gave us a quote that was like very reasonable, very affordable. She ended up being a retired art teacher and was like, I just do this on the side for fun. You're giving me something to do next week. So I would love to do this if you'll have me. And I was like, yes, Jeanette. And then can you come be my kid's third grandmother as well? Like she was just so sweet and kind. I had mentioned to her about my daughter and how she had a passion for art as well. And she was like, I knew at 6 years old that I wanted to be an art teacher. So just keep encouraging her. And she was like, if she's here while I'm working on it, I would love for her to help me with it. And it was just, she's so sweet. It's like, I don't know. I expect her to show up with chocolate chip cookies the next time. She's just so thoughtful and kind. So that was a fun little introduction to the local area. Let's see. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to touch on, and then I will let you guys go after 30 minutes of talking about getting the short-term rental up and running. We have a vision for this property to be a micro resort. So a lot of people have been confused about whether to call the property Elysian or Luna because I've been referring to it as both. And I see the confusion there. So let me explain what the vision is. And I think the names will make more sense after that. So it currently has the one geodesic dome, and that ran as an Airbnb prior to us. And we plan on continuing to use it as an Airbnb and short-term rental. I see a lot of potential in this property because it is on 5 acres. It has room to expand. The zoning laws are not very stringent in this county that we're in Southern Virginia. And so I would love to add 4 to 5 more units on this property. Not necessarily other geodesic domes, but unique stays. Think a mirror house, a tree house, potentially a silo, like just weird, quirky, unique stays, and have it become a micro resort. So the micro resort's name is going to be Elysian. That's the name of the entire property, but each individual unit will also have its own name. And this first unit that's already there is Luna because it's a white geodesic dome that looks like a half moon sitting in the middle of the woods. And it's heavenly, which is the meaning behind Elysian. We did a little walkthrough. We had explored the property a little bit, but nothing out like far out in the woods when we were there staying overnight in September. And so this time we took the opportunity to walk the property a little bit more deeper into the 5 acres because it's a long, skinny 5 acres. We found an abandoned bridge. It was so cool. And the water was actually frozen. So the dog that was our dog, he's 6 months old. His name is Reese. Reese was ice skating on the creek because it was so cold and frozen. But so we took the bridge. He took the ice to get over to the other side. Some of the water that's there in the creeks that are on that property is so clear. You can see the pebbles in the bottom of the creek. It's heavenly. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. We found a couple of like deep ridges. So the property's in the mountains in the Blue Ridge Parkway, but we don't have like a mountain view necessarily, but we have the mountain terrain. So there are a couple of ridges, and I was just like dreaming, thinking of like, how cool would it be to build a tree house like off of a ridge so that when you look out of a wall of windows, it feels like you are just waking up to being in the forest. That's what I'm dreaming. That's what I want. I think if I had my perfect world, the second unit would be a mirror house. And if you haven't checked out OOD houses, I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but that's their handle on Instagram. You should go check them out. That's my goal for the second unit. I want it to be named Sol, S-O-L, like the sun. So we'll have the sun and the moon on the property. Those are hopefully going to be our first 2 units. And then after that, I would love for the tree house to be named Eden, like the Garden of Eden. Again, heavenly, divine, and have it be just designed with bright colors, immersion of like feeling like you're in a garden or a greenhouse because you look out the windows and all you see is trees. Gonna be amazing. Gonna be amazing. The vision's all there, and now we're ready to execute. So thank you for listening to part 3 of the Elysian/Luna story. I do think that there's going to end up being a part 4 because we have not listed it live yet. We still have a garage full of furniture and are waiting to do the furniture install once the floor install is complete. So stay tuned for part 4. Not exactly sure when that's going to come at you. It might be after the new year once we get the listing live, and that way I can put it in the show notes. But yes, thank you so much for following along on this journey. If you have any questions about it, like I would love to just I'm an open book. Like, let me know. Find me on Instagram at brandandmarket.co, brandandmarket, or .co. DM me, shoot me a DM. Love to hear from you. And I'm going to put in a shameless plug here for if you are interested in purchasing a short-term rental. I am going to put a link to a freebie that I just designed as I went through the process of this acquisition of Luna. And it's a checklist of everything that you would need to do prior to putting in an offer, once you put in the offer, and post-closing. So basically all of these things that I'm talking about with this Elysian acquisition, it's in that checklist and is very helpful, especially if you are looking at multiple properties and are in that pre-offer phase. So I'm going to put a link to download that in the show notes. And I would absolutely love to just answer any questions that you guys have. So until next time, until part 4, signing off on the Elysian project. You just completed another episode of the Brand Market Podcast. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned today. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.